Hey, what's up, DS3TV? I can see you haven't subscribed to the channel. It's kind of weird. You should subscribe. I mean, you know, we got some good content here. And also, go to the Twitch that's in the link down in the description. Link is probably right here under me. And yeah, should do all of that. And yeah, please subscribe. Get to see me have hot sauce that I don't really want to have when we get to 10,000. So subscribe. Hi guys, welcome back to DS3TV, and yeah, have some updates on the new content that's coming out. That's I just sent the clips over to the editor, so hopefully we'll get that content out in the next week. And yeah, let's get into this video though. And yeah, this is the new Over to Crescent Productions video. I just seen that they made a new one, so I decided this is going to be the video that we shoot today. And plus it's short, I can do it before I go to work, so yeah. Let's get into it and play.
Russia. You know, living in North America, I feel something of a kinship for you. Both top-heavy Arctic-adjacent landmasses that get less populated the further north you go, reaching extreme low temperatures at both ends of the year.
That's kind of true. I mean, and that's really true for like the whole North American continent, honestly, so that makes sense.
And the similarities don't end there. We've skipped arm in arm through history, beating up Nazis, famously deposing monarchs, and devastating enormously diverse and formerly thriving indigenous communities via European colonialism. Hooray! Nowadays mostly known as the punchline to jokes about cold weather, Siberia has historically been home to an enormous number of indigenous communities, and currently those groups make up a growing 10% of Siberia's population, around 4.5 million people in total. This demographic covers at least 9 language families with significant cultural subdivision within those groups. Now, I'm not the history guy, and I know my limits, so to sum up, basically it's a really big, really complicated space of dozens of distinct cultures and communities living in one of the most inhospitable environments on the planet, and they're still recovering from a few centuries of Russia doing its damnedest to stop them being distinct cultures and communities so they could absorb them instead. Cool? Cool. Now back in the early 80s, there was this dude, James Reardon, who was an Englishman with an abiding love for the finer things in life. Footballing, sports history, and communism.
Yes, the great Mother Russia.
His passion for all three led him to spend several years studying in Moscow and familiarizing himself with the Russian language and culture. Along with his more standard Russian education, he also lived in Siberia for about 5 months total, staying with various indigenous groups and documenting some of their folk tales as best he could, recording them in a book titled The Sun, Maiden, and the Crescent Moon, Siberian Folk Tales. Reardon did this because he was very intrigued by the unique culture of the area, so different from the more familiar societies he grew up in, and more immediately, he was very worried that the
Just to let you know, I'm kidding. Glory to one.
unique culture of the indigenous Siberian peoples would be lost as the rest of Russia quote-unquote civilized them. A reasonable concern, historically speaking. He was also concerned about the loss of their environment, as he drops a rather haunting concept in the preface to his book that there were plans being floated at the time to literally nuke the Siberian permafrost and melt the Arctic to unlock all the shiny precious metals and oil deposits buried under the ice, which is certainly one way to destroy a culture's historical way of life. All that to say, Reardon had several pressing reasons to want to document as much Siberian culture as he could get his mittens on. Now, I'd describe this book as a popular retelling rather than a particularly scholarly approach. It's not a rigidly sourced dissertation with citations out the wazoo, and while it specifies which specific...
Oh, sorry. Just thought of a good joke, chat. Have any? I mean, well, you know, just thought of a good joke. Do you have any maidens?
culture-specific stories are from, it doesn't cite the storyteller or give much in the way of context. Reardon's goal was to preserve something he believed was worth saving by translating the stories for public consumption and entertainment rather than rigorous academic accuracy, which is basically what we do here, so far be it from me to complain. So here's your complimentary grain of salt, and let's get into a story from the Ket people, the Sun, Maiden, and the Crescent Moon. Now our story begins very cheerfully, with a young brother and sister being tragically orphaned at an early age. Despite this setback, they grow up strong and healthy regardless and make it to adulthood relatively unscathed, and while the sister seems pretty happy to stay home and focus on finding enough food to live, the brother has a touch of the old wanderlust and spends his days adventuring around the tundra, seeing new places, meeting new people, and generally having a grand old time. But let's pan the camera away and take a quick jaunt up to the heavens, where the Sun Maiden has been feeling very lonely. Nobody ever hangs out with her on account of how bright and hot she is, a first world problem if ever I heard one, but one day she happens to spot a handsome young man trekking across the tundra and admiring her beauty and warmth, who is, of course, none other than the brother from the beginning of our tale. She's immediately smitten with him and reaches down with her extra stretchy sunbeam arms to snag him and take him home with her. The brother is kind of impressed, but mostly very freaked out and homesick, as abduction by celestial bodies is a rather unusual event in any young man's life, and
I mean, you know, it is, unless you're in Greece and you're in the Greek fairy tales. Well, the Greek fables, I mean.
after a week, he asks the Sun Maiden to send him home, but promises to visit her again because he really does like her. He's just not the hugest fan of being kidnapped about it. The Sun Maiden is distraught because she has a really bad feeling that something terrible is going to happen to him, so before he leaves, she gives him 2 gifts, a whetstone and a comb. She also summons a winged horse for him to ride back to Earth on. So the brother flies back home and finds his sister waiting for him. Huzzah! But unfortunately for all parties involved, unbeknownst to the brother, while he was up in space hanging out with the sun, his sister was f***ing eaten by the evil witch Hasiadam, who took on her form the Thing style and is now disguised as her.
Wait, what? That is a turn. What is that turn in this anime?
So his sister greets him happily and goes to prepare food, but does so by popping a leg off his getaway horse and chucking it in the pot. This is suspicious enough that the brother takes a closer look, catches a hint of horror movie background music, grabs the horse leg, and books it with the witch in hot pursuit. So he pops the leg back on the horse and takes off, but it really needed a horse mechanic to look it over first, so the horse doesn't make it too far before it collapses. He ends up on foot and not making too much headway until he remembers the sun's other gifts and throws the whetstone behind him, at which point it erupts into a huge mountain blocking the witch's way. Unfortunately, it doesn't block her for very long as she chews through the rock with her metal teeth, so he keeps running.
Why isn't this turned into like a short film or something? This would be a really good movie.
She closes the gap again, he throws the comb behind him, which springs up into a dense forest, which unfortunately also doesn't stand up well to the witch's teeth, and she catches up one more time. By now, the Sun Maiden has noticed what's going on and reaches down to grab him again, but the witch also gets a hold of our unfortunate protagonist, and in the ensuing struggle, he is pulled in half. Now, this isn't actually as much of a deal breaker as it might sound, since the Sun Maiden is a super powerful magical being and all that, but unfortunately, she ended up with the half of the guy that didn't have a heart, which means her options are limited. Her magic can bring him back, but without a heart, it can only keep him going for a few days at a time before he dies again and she needs to start over. She tries substituting a burning coal for his heart, but that only keeps him going for about a week. Perpetually heartbroken and increasingly unable to bear looking at her half-dead and constantly doomed love, the Sun Maiden banishes him to the far end of the heavens, decreeing that they'll only see each other on the longest day of the year. The half-man, exiled to the dark sky, becomes the Crescent Moon. It just goes to show you something.
That's insane. That's actually a really beautiful, like, it's a brutal story, but beautiful too. It's pretty good.
Upon a time
I turned my first love. I turned my first boyfriend into the moon. That's rough, buddy.
I was falling in love.
My personal theory is that this folktale actually says the man becomes the moon overall, not just the crescent moon, and his weekly cycle of fading and dying, and being restored is just the phases of the moon, but this is the only source I have, so I'm not about to second guess it with no external support.
I'm only falling up.
That was a good one. So yeah, just a little quick short video for you guys, and yeah, talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.